Hi, my name is Miriam, and I'm a medical student at 𝗬𝗬𝗀𝗃 with Wisconsin Voices for Recovery to bring you the Saturday Night Chat, which is a monthly chat that creates a space for people to share their recovery journey and to show people who are in or seeking recovery that they are not alone and that recovery is possible. Today, we will be hearing from Kristin. Thank you for being with us today. Could you start off by please introducing yourself and tell us more about who you are?
I am 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝘂𝗧𝗂𝗧. I am a nurse in Wisconsin. Here I've been a nurse in Wisconsin for 34 years now, which is crazy to believe. I've been in recovery for 20 years, and I'm just here to kind of share my story and raise some awareness and hopefully instill a little hope.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time and for agreeing to do this. So I think I want to start off by asking you how you got connected to Wisconsin Voices for Recovery and just kind of the journey to that.
Yeah, I think they were at a conference that I was also exhibiting at. I have a nonprofit that I'll tell you about in a little bit. But we got connected that way. And then I was invited to share Stop the Stigma, I think is what it's called, on the Facebook page that they do those every Monday. I think they release a new chat with somebody. And then I heard about this. And so they asked me if I'd be interested in doing this. And I said, absolutely. Sign me up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so now I kind of want to hear a little bit more about your journey with substance use, how that kind of happened and like just kind of your journey towards recovery. Yeah, feel free to
Sure.
share whatever you're comfortable with.
Sure. So my substance use started back in college. Really, in high school, I didn't do a whole lot of drinking. My parents were really strict and I was afraid of them. So I did whatever they told me pretty much. But then I went away to school. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I went all the way to Winona, Minnesota to for school. Uh, it's only like 200 miles, but I felt like it was a world away, and I was so excited, like to be on my own and start my life. But I didn't have any experience with taking care of myself. Like I had no idea how to do that. And I took a lot of anxiety with me, even though I didn't know that's what that was. And so I just found myself always very nervous and anxious. And my friends, like many college kids, and I went out and drank. And I just remember that first night of drinking where I drank a fair amount, that I felt like all of that anxiety and fear and all of that just melted away. I felt like I could talk to people very comfortably. I felt pretty. I felt funny. I could dance. Like it just seemed to take away all of that discomfort I had been feeling. So I found reasons to drink. Uh, a lot, more so than my peers. I would be out drinking longer than them. I would disappear like from parties and they wouldn't know where I was. Like I did goofy stuff that they didn't do. It was different. My drinking was different. And then I had my first daughter in my fourth year because my drinking made it so it took me 6 years to get my 4 year degree instead of the usual four. But I had my daughter in my fourth year, which really was a good thing. I mean, I did not make good decisions when I was drinking, and I ended up pregnant. However, having her made me clean up my act for a little bit. I could do that for her. I couldn't do that for me. So I did. Things were better the last couple of years. Not great, but better. And I graduated. So I moved back home after graduation and I took a job in a small hospital on a pediatric unit. And my drinking after college and, for the first few years after uh, graduating and starting my, first nursing job was okay. Like I didn't do anything crazy. I was a binge drinker though. And so maybe I drank only a handful of times a month, but when I drank a lot. I had myself convinced that I was being a good mom because I was staying home. I wasn't going out and partying. At least, I mean, every now and then I would go out, but not often. I would stay home, and after my daughter went to bed is when I would start drinking. So I thought I was being a good mom because I wasn't, around her when I was drinking. However, I drank all by myself until I passed out, which is certainly not normal, but I didn't think it was a big deal. I certainly would not have been able to care for my daughter if she had needed something in the middle of the night because I was passed out. But things kind of went along like that for a few years. And then in the late 90s, I was dating my first husband. It was not a good relationship from the beginning. I never seemed to date normal, for lack of a better word, men. I always drank men that drank a lot, and oftentimes they were not very nice when they drank. And that was the case of my first husband as well. But when I started dating him, I also had surgery very close to the same time. And after that surgery, I was prescribed Percocet. I found that I really liked the Percocet. And what I liked about it is it made me feel better, very much like the alcohol did. But I didn't have all those side effects of alcohol like I did with alcohol. I didn't stumble around and act stupid and smell bad and all that kind of thing. So that really appealed to me. I really liked that feeling. I could still function normally pretty much and still feel better. So I found reasons in the next few years to get more pills. I would fake back pain. All nurses have back pain. So I would hobble into my doctor's office and be like, oh, I have such pain. Will you, give me something? And she always did. She always prescribed me Vicodin. I didn't do that a lot, or I'm sure she wouldn't have continued that, but maybe a handful of times. I'm not even sure exactly. And then my first husband was a carpenter, and he would hurt himself sometimes. So he would go to the ER. They would always give him opioids, and he would always share them with me. Did that kind of thing over the next few years. And then I really loved my job in peds at this small hospital. The only thing I didn't like about it is that when our kids got really sick, the Children's Hospital transport team would come and take our kids back to Children's. And the only reason I didn't like that is because I wanted to take care of them. Like, I was sad when they left. So after about 5 years or so, I followed those nurses and took a job at Children's. And I did critical care floating for the first couple of years. And I loved that, loved the floating. But what I liked most was the emergency department. And so I took a night shift job in the ER. And just really loved it. Trauma was my favorite. Like, I just really excelled at that. My marriage then was bad. Like, it was really not, there was no surprise there. Like, it wasn't going to be good. It started out bad. And what I noticed one night when I was in the ER is that we throw away a lot of really good drugs. And I thought I shouldn't say I thought to myself, because I didn't really think about it, but I just put something in, or morphine in my pocket after a case one night. Our patients were small and we had big doses. So we were supposed to waste a lot of medication. But I started taking it instead of wasting it. At the time, so this was around the year 2000. At the time, we didn't have the automated machines that they have now for dispensing medication. We just had paper in a little lockbox. And so we're supposed to co-sign those wastes when we throw that medicine away, because it's a controlled substance. We're supposed to have someone witness that. So I would take the paper to my friend and say, hey, would you sign off on this waste? And they would always sign off on it, even though they hadn't witnessed it. They trusted me. We were coworkers for a number of years now at that point, and they trusted me. So I did that kind of thing, taking that waste medication as often as I could. Probably I worked 2 shifts a week, probably once a week, sometimes twice, that I would have leftover stuff and I would take it home. And it was IV. When I took that medication for the first time, it was very similar to when I first had the Percocet, or when I first drank the alcohol. It was, wow, that really makes me feel better. But with the IV, it's right away. Like, it's immediate and it's stronger. And so that had a great appeal to me. Again, my marriage was really bad. Our work was hard. I absolutely adored pediatrics, but it was really hard. We had some really tragic cases. And we did not deal with that well. We just moved on to the next case. On occasion, we would talk about it, but not at any real depth. We just kind of buried that and went on to the next case. So I think that combination was very difficult for me. And instead of addressing that or going to a therapist or things like that, I chose substances instead. So did that kind of taking that waste stuff for a couple of years. And then I had leftover fentanyl after a case one day. And I know most people have heard of fentanyl these days. Back when I took it, most people had not heard of it. It wasn't yet, because this was probably around the year 2003 or so. When I first took that fentanyl, it was very similar to the other things, like that really makes me feel better, but it was in a different class. It was so much stronger and so powerful, like that craving. I had an immediate craving for more. When I took the other stuff, I certainly wanted it, and I would say I was addicted to it. I was stealing, it was a really bad situation. But this was very different. This was a different level. That fentanyl was just so powerful. I was also going through a divorce at that time. I was very depressed, very anxious. I had a second daughter in my marriage, and I was so afraid of being a single mother again, and how in the world am I going to manage that? I just imagine that made the fentanyl, that feeling it gave me, even more appealing. So once I took that fentanyl for the first time, if I didn't get any wasted medication or medication that was left over after a case, I started stealing it from stock. It doesn't take them long to figure out what's going on when you steal from, and stuff isn't missing. So I came to work one night and was confronted by my manager. And she took me into a conference room. And in that room, in the corner, was a sheriff's deputy with a big gun on his belt. There was a detective in, this interview chair at like the head of the table. They introduced the director of security and the director of pharmacy, the director of HR, or human resources, and the chief nursing officer was there. My manager stayed, and they interrogated me. I denied everything because I was just in this state of panic. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had myself convinced the whole time. Well, a couple of things I convinced myself of. One, that I would never do it again. Every time I took it, I had convinced myself, I would say, I just needed this one more time because of this. Fill in the blank. I always had some excuse, some reason. So that was it. And then, that was one thing that allowed me to take it, I guess, because I could just convince myself one more time and it won't be so, and I'll just never do it again. And I forget what the other thing was that I was just going to say, but anyway, so they suspended me. My manager gave me a box of all the things from my locker, and the security guard walked me out the front door. I heard later that had I confessed at that moment, I would have been taken out in handcuffs. So I'm glad, I guess, that I didn't, although I don't like the fact that I lied. I did change that later. I got myself a lawyer and said I need to confess. I had so much guilt and shame that was just crushing me. And I mean, I have never been in trouble before. I've never even gotten a speeding ticket. I'm 57 years old and still don't I follow the rules. I'm a moral person, but I had this awful, I don't even know the right words to say, but I just had this addiction that I had no control over at all. So I was grateful to be free of it, or to not have that pulling me anymore, because it was just such a strong pull that fentanyl was. However, it started a whole new issue. So I was charged with 26 felonies for each ampule of fentanyl that they could prove I stole. I lost my job. I lost my nursing license. And yet I ended up spending about 4 months incarcerated at the House of Correction in Franklin. It's where I spent most of my time. I did not like jail. I didn't. don't ever want to go back there again. Jail was bad. It was awful. But the feeling that all those feelings that went along with that was just so, I don't know, all the words, I don't know. It was just overwhelming. I was despondent. It was awful. It was the thing, though, that said to me, like, again, I don't ever want to be here again in this place. I don't ever want to feel this way again. And so when I got out of there, I really threw myself into recovery. And I say it like that because I did. I just threw myself into 12-step meetings. I went to therapy. I was fully engaged. I thought I don't want this life anymore. I want to be better. So I've been in recovery since that time, since January of 2005. And I'm so grateful for that. I don't want to bore you for too long, but I just want to tell how I got my nursing license back. So the state of Wisconsin, the Board of Nursing and the Board of Nursing has a program, a monitoring program for nurses in situations like mine. We can retain a license, a limited license. There are restrictions on it. But with folks like me that have had struggles, still have an opportunity to get their nursing licenses back as long as they're going through this monitoring program. It's a very intense program. It's 5 years long. You have to do drug screens. You have to go to therapy and 12-step meetings. You have to submit reports. There's a lot of pieces to it, but really worth it, because I thought in that moment, like when I was fired from my job, I thought my nursing career was over. Like I never thought I would be a nurse again. And then I found out about this program. And although I was without my license for a couple of years, this program allowed me to get my license back and to return to practice. I've done a lot of different things over the last 20 years. Most recently, I've been 3.5 years now. I am back at the emergency department at a smaller hospital again, and just so grateful that I get to do that again. But another thing that I've done is create a peer support program for nurses in recovery, and also just all nurses, because we all need support. When I was going through that program and getting my license back and trying to return to nursing, it was all really scary and overwhelming. And I had no idea, like, how do I do all this? How do I get through this monitoring program? Who in the world is going to hire me with all this stuff? How do I talk to an employer? How do I go back to work and be safe? Like, there were so many questions, but I got through them. I mean, I did it. I just didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I went to 12-step meetings, and I really believe that 12-step program saved my life. But they didn't know anything about nursing. They didn't know anything about licensing issues and that kind of thing. Some of the work I do today, I learned that other states have these really cool programs for nurses that are going through those kinds of situations. And so they take nurses that have done those kinds of things and have them run groups to support nurses as they go through them. And I thought, boy, we really need that in Wisconsin. And so in September of 2021, we launched Wisconsin Peer Support, or what am I saying? Wisconsin Peer Alliance for Nurses, peer support for nurses. WISPAN for short. And really, we started as that substance use peer support group for nurses that can come, and we can all just visit and talk to each other and answer questions and give a little guidance and tell our stories so people don't feel so alone. So great. Those meetings are just phenomenal and really are so healing. You see healing, get healed. They're really very powerful meetings. And then last year we were like, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could intervene for nurses before they got to that point? Like before they were, struggling so bad that their substance use is making them do things they otherwise would not do. And so we started nurse mental wellness peer support. So peer support for nurses in whatever struggle they're having, whether it's burnout, stress, PTSD after COVID is really a big deal. And just kind of trying to support nurses where they're at. And help them through so they can avoid the messier stuff down the road. So that's kind of my story. That was kind of long, sorry. But it's, yeah, so that I'll pause and let you process that and ask some more questions.
That is, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that and for sharing about the support groups that you just talked about right now. I guess question that I have is I want to learn more about how recovery was for you because I'm sure it wasn't a walk in the park. I'm sure you kind of faced challenges and just kind of I want to know more about what motivated you and like what were some of the challenges you faced through that and yeah and like support that you had like so like if you felt like you had a good support system too, people
Yeah.
around you. Yeah.
So my early recovery was jail. And although not pleasant, like jail was not a good time, but there were women in there that were amazing. Like women I never would have encountered out and about because we move in different circles. But they were so helpful to me just in getting through that whole jail experience. So without them, I don't know what I would have done. So really supportive people there. And then when I got out, I immediately went to 12 step. I have a sponsor or had, I have a new one now, but I had a sponsor who was so awesome. Like she picked me up from jail and we went to a meeting. She took me to meetings all the time. She was really great. And I had no idea how to be well. Like I didn't know. I had never been since I was little, I don't think, ever been really emotionally healthy. I always had anxiety and never really dealt with it. And then as I got older, depression too. So those 12 step meetings and having that sponsor be so supportive of me was huge. And then I went to therapy. At first, it was really hard for me, as it is, I'm sure, for everybody, to open up because it was hard to trust. I'm not used to talking about my feelings. I didn't know how to do that. I remember telling her, I'm afraid if I start crying, like I'll never stop. I'm like, I don't think I can, I can't let go. Like I can't not let it go. And she just was so kind and patient and encouraging. And she was in recovery too, which I think was really helpful. That made me feel connected to her. And I went to her for probably 7 years, I think, through my early and then not as early recovery. So that was really helpful. My early recovery in jail, I had people ask me all the time about like withdrawal because I was taking fentanyl, but I was only taking it a couple times when I was at work. If I wasn't at work, I didn't have it. So I didn't have a lot of withdrawal, which I think was really also very good. Like it was good that I didn't have to go through that because there were so many women that withdrew very scarily. They would have seizures and things like that in the jail. So anyway, I'm grateful for that. But I think for me that the two most important were my sponsor and then my therapist. My family, though, too, is still amazing. Like they came to visit me when I was in jail, as mad as they were at me, and they were very angry with me, understandably. They brought my older daughter. So my two daughters were 14 and 4 when I was in jail. And they brought my older daughter to see me, and everyone was mad at me and was able to tell me that. And we had really good cries and conversations. And but they never left me. Like they just were always there. Even if they were upset with me, they were still, I knew that I could count on them. Like if I needed a ride to a meeting, no matter what, they would always help me. And not everybody has that. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. My next question for you is, I guess, what do you have to say about the stigma surrounding substance use? And you could comment on like your own experiences or just like things you felt when you were going through that journey, or just things you've witnessed later on. But yeah, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think being a nurse, being in the healthcare world makes it even more difficult to ask for help because we are the helpers. We're not supposed to need help, or at least that's how I felt about it. I really did not feel like I could say, I am really struggling and I need help. I just kept thinking I needed to fix it. Like, I need to fix this. I just need to do this and then I'll be better. Or I need to do that and then I'll be better. And the truth is, I couldn't fix it. I needed help. And I unfortunately couldn't get that until my whole world crashed around me. But that stigma is so powerful, and it keeps us silent. And it's, like I said, a little more difficult, I think, in healthcare, but it's true for everybody that struggles. It's so hard to raise your hand and say, hey, I need help. I'm struggling. I'm drowning over here. Help me. It's just really hard. I think for me, the stigma, I held myself against myself. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that stigma is what kept me, because I didn't think I should be suffering. I'm like, I have a really great life. That's what I told myself. Like, what are you complaining about? My husband was difficult, but I had a husband. He made good money, decent money. And we had two children who were healthy. Like, I always berated myself for not being stronger. Like, why aren't you stronger? Why are you doing this? You shouldn't need this. You shouldn't do it. So that kept me quiet because I didn't think I should need help. I thought I should be able to fix it. And then, my family, the stigma in my family, they wouldn't even talk about it. They knew I was struggling with alcohol. Nobody knew about the drugs, but they sure knew I was struggling with alcohol. And although getting angry with me sometimes for my drinking, there was never a discussion about it. It was, shh, we can't talk about that. So I think that stigma too keeps quiet, because maybe if they had said, hey, Kristin, and I don't know that that's true, but because I'm a stubborn stinker, but maybe if they had said, Kristin, you need some help, you should, maybe I would have gotten help earlier. I don't know. And then I think stigma in society too. Like in this state in particular, it's well, we all go out and we party. Like, that's what you do. My friends drank and drove. Like, nobody gave it a second thought. It's just the way it is, so if you're starting to feel, I don't know, like you need help, or like things, you're drinking too much, or you're using drugs, it's a party kind of scene. So it's not a big deal. So I feel like there's stigma even there, like reverse kind of stigma, like it's all okay. It's fun. We're all having a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with the comment about the environment here in Wisconsin with like the drinking culture and everything too. I feel like that's a big deal. And I really, really relate to what you said about just kind of being in the healthcare field and how we're supposed to be the helpers, and just how important it is to recognize that we are human, all of us,
Right.
and that even when we do have our times where we're able to help others, like we need help, but if we don't receive that help, we can't be there to help others. So thank you for
Yeah.
commenting on that. Um, and I'd like to end this wonderful interview with just a message from you or advice that you would give to people who are currently in recovery or who are seeking recovery, just kind of what you would say to them, kind of being on the other side of things.
Yeah. I think I would say, don't give up. I work in an emergency department again now, like I said, and we get patients that come in time and time again because they want to stop drinking, or they want to stop using. They come in and they get the help, but then they go home and they, continue to use. I had a woman recently tell me, I'm so sorry for wasting your time. I don't even know why I'm coming here. And I said to her, you are not wasting my time. This is why we're here. We're here for you. And I said, please don't feel that way. I, I'm glad you're here, and I'm happy to help you. And so please don't give up. Please keep trying. This darn disease, part of it, not everybody's journey, but a lot of folks, part of their journey is continued use. We try to stop and then we return maybe to using, and then we try and stop again. Keep trying to stop. I always like to say to people that I work with, the time that you had not using, whether it was a week or a month or a year, that time still counts. Like you learn things during that time that you bring with you. You know where to go for help. You have more experience. Every time you try, you build on that experience and you get closer and closer. And you never know when that one thing that is going to make a difference for you happens, whether it's something you hear at a meeting or something a therapist will tell you. You never know. So you have to keep trying. Like, just don't give up. And if you're in recovery and maybe struggling a little, starting to, maybe have thoughts of using, or maybe just getting really sad, please reach out. Going to meetings for me has been my lifeline. I am I like to be by myself. I'm just a very isolative person, but I need to be out with other people sometimes. I also need to be alone to recharge, but I need to be with other people and talk about things that are things that I'm feeling, whether good or bad. Like, I need to talk about my feelings and talk about things that are happening with me. And I've been sober 20 years, but I still go to 12-step meetings and talk about my feelings. It's that important. It's not like because I stopped using, now everything's great. Like, you have to deal with life. Life is hard. And we need to support each other. And so don't give up and keep reaching out for support.
Thank you so much. I want to take a moment to thank you for just being super open and vulnerable about your experiences and for taking the time out of your day to do this. And yeah, again, this was Miriam, medical student at 𝗬𝗬𝗀𝗃, and Kristin we're from Wisconsin Voices for Recovery. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.